Hey, and welcome to the first of many Ask Me Anything segments. I have had people ask me questions for a very long time about my writing, who I am, what I like to read other than writing what I write. So, this is just to get you guys to know me a little bit more. So, the first question is, what is your writing process? Now, somebody asked me this, like, I think a week or so ago, maybe. And I don't really think I ever thought about it until just at that moment. So, my writing process, I have an idea in my head, and then I story storm. So, I'll write down a bunch of questions to myself. I'll make tentative outlines, and a lot of these are just in journals. I love writing out things by hand. I never go to the computer first. I guess I just feel like I'm closer to my characters that way. I don't know, it's just a me thing. Anyway, so I'll go through my journal and then I'll actually type things up on an outline on my computer. And I actually use the English, what we learn in English classes. And so from there, I try to stick with it, but it doesn't always work and sometimes gets me into a lot of trouble when I end up writing my first draft. But when I do, I write straight through. I don't stop. I don't go back and fill in a hole. I actually just write straight through, and if I have a hole that I need to fill, I'll make a comment for me to go back to it later. Because I've learned over the years it's better just to write straight through than to stop and lose momentum, as it were. So that's kind of my process for writing. It's not perfect, but I mean, it works. I'm assuming other writers have their own thing, but it works for me. Now, for the second question, did you always know you wanted to be a writer? No. In fact, I didn't really start reading for fun until I was probably 8 years old. I mean, I read books beforehand, like, kids' books, picture books, stuff like that. But I never really got into reading until I was 8. And I remember my parents and I went into this bookstore. It's a local bookstore. And I was bored out of my mind. And my dad wanted to get a book. I guess he was looking for something at the time. And I'm like, I'm going to lose my mind in here. There's nothing that I like. So I found myself wandering over to the Nancy Drew section. And it was like something just clicked. I don't know what. And I'll never be able to explain it. But I fell in love with Nancy Drew. The older books, not the newer ones. Those came later. But I just started pulling them off the shelves and like reading everything that I could get my hands on. And I remember my parents coming over to me wondering, are you okay? Because they had never seen me pick up a book without being begged. So that's kind of how the reading came, but the writing came like a lot later. I'd say probably when I was in my late teens did it really hit me that this is what I want to do with my life. This is it. This is my calling. So for the third question, how long have you been writing? That's an interesting question because I think I was probably around 10 when I first started writing. I wrote my very first story, and to this day, I don't know where it is. I wish I could find it. But it was about a little bluebird who wanted to go south for the winter with all the geese. And he decided, nope, up here, up north is my place to be. I know it's the strangest thing, but it was like a little kid's book. And I was around 10, so it was a long time ago. And it was kind of funny because from 10 and then I kind of skipped to 12. Is 12 around 11 or 12 is when I started the Amber Oak series, and then I started the actual writing of books. So, long time ago. So, the next question is, what is the first book you remember reading? Well, I did say Nancy Drew was the first book I ever really started with, really clicked with me. But the first book I actually remember reading was they were a collection of series of true events. They were called the True Value books, and I read them when I was middle school, I think. Must have been middle school, and they had a lot of really cool pictures in them, but they were based on true stories. And I still have all of them today, but I'll never forget the lessons I learned in them, and I highly recommend them to any parent who has younger children and wants them to get into reading, because that really stuck with me into adulthood, and I'll never forget those series. So the fifth question, what made you love reading? I think it was the fact that it actually happened within the True Value books. I think that's what really made me love to read, because it's one thing to read fiction and be like, oh, it's another world, but to see things that have happened to people and they've conquered all these trials, I think that really stuck with me. Even at a young age, I was like, wow, well, if they can get over their fear of something or their problem, whatever it may be, then you know what? I can beat whatever my trial is too. And so that was a really huge encouragement to me. And I think that's what really kind of slowly set the pace for me to read. And the sixth question, last question for this time, is what classes did you take for writing? Okay, I have a confession. I didn't take any classes specifically for writing. I did have English classes, and I did have classes in college that I took that were creative writing, but I never even went to college for writing. I went for my degree in public relations and advertising. I know that sounds super, super, super crazy because I'm a writer and this is what I love to do, but when I got into college, I had a very proudful mindset, unfortunately, that I knew it all. Obviously, I don't, because I'm still learning. But I got into college thinking all I need is to learn how to market my own work. But when I got to that point, there was a classmate of mine who saw that was on a really high horse and I needed to step down a little bit. And he didn't say much to me, but he didn't need to. I could just see it in his expression that I really need to take a reality check, that I still had a lot to learn, and even my English classes proved it. I barely got a C in my English classes in college. I actually had to take remedial English. I know that sounds so horrible, but it's true. And I'm still learning through reading. I read a lot, as much as I possibly can, and I learned from other authors their way of writing. And if I'm not sure about something, I look it up. I know that now that I wish I had done that when I was younger, looked things up more, but I mean, better late than never. But I never took them, so I'm pretty much self-taught. I never took those classes. And I do appreciate reading other people's work because it's kind of my own way of learning. But if I were to ever offered English classes and I could ever take them in writing classes, I would do it in a heartbeat because I want to learn everything I can in my field because this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I have a lot of stories coming and I want to encourage and inspire people with what I do. Well, that's all I have time for today with this segment, but I really hope you learn a little bit more about me, and I really appreciate your time. Stay tuned.